love snow skiing. It's been my background all my life. And I thought, well, I want to get into filmmaking. I'll start on a subject matter I know something about. I'd seen a lot of ski films, and I could see that there was an opportunity to create a point of difference, tell a real story, have sound effects, like surf movies, they didn't have any sound and just music and all that sort of thing. So, and create continuity, all the things that you would normally do in a feature film. And so that's what I did. And I found two guys who were really, really good skiers and up for it, and sort of went forward from there.
It's pretty ambitious.
Yeah, it was and it wasn't, because I was comfortable about what I was doing. But yes, definitely punching above my weight, in terms of the location that we chose, which was Mount Cook. It was very, very extreme, but I surrounded myself with very, very talented people, alpine guides and alpine helicopter pilots and what have you, who really knew their environment. So they took me into places that we wanted to go, and so it just all moved forward from there. There's a glacier that comes down off of Mount Cook. It's called the Hochstetter Icefall, and it peels over a cliff. And as most people know, glaciers are like moving frozen rivers. So it was just absolutely coincidental when the hang gliders were flying over it that it broke off. And I was filming from a helicopter, and we were able to get ourselves in a really good position to make the most of it. And there was another cameraman on the ground, so he was filming. So it was just one of those lucky things, I filmed off the edge over 9 months, over 2 winters. So when you're there all the time, things happen, and people come up with ideas, and you incorporate them into, what you're wanting to achieve. So we just got lucky, and it was the same with the storm sequence. I have to be honest, it was several storms we filmed over a period of time and edited them together, and we built up a big storm sequence out of that. I'd read something about incest, and maybe I was just wanting to do something, I don't know, I just sort of chose to get away as far as I could from off the edge and delve into a very dark kind of part of New Zealand life that doesn't really get talked about. So it sort of morphed from there, really. I came up with the original concept, and then brought on board different writers. Martin Sanderson came on board when we were on location to help us with some dialogue, to flesh out some scenes, and he was great to work with. And I worked with him again on Sylvia. He was an actor. So yeah, so it was a huge step up, that's for sure. And people were going, "You're hiring Bruno Lawrence and Terence Cooper? You're crazy, they'll kill you." But they were just wonderful guys to work with, they really were. To be honest, I hadn't really had a great deal of experience working with actors. In fact, I really hadn't had any. And to be honest, I don't think the actors were, Bruno of course, and Terence had acting experience. So I think it was a learning experience for everybody. In hindsight, more time rehearsing with people and learning the process. But I think we came out of it really, really well, in actual fact. And I'm very proud of what we did at the time. It was a very tough subject matter to be a commercial film, in hindsight. But I think we finished up, I think we're all proud of what we did. That was a tough film, it really was. We struggled, we ran, half the money fell apart, we were in the middle of the film. Just something you just do not want. Yeah, I met this producer in the States, and he said, I'd done Off the Edge, and that was going on, and he said, "Why don't you go back to New Zealand?" And because I was living in Los Angeles at the time, because that's where we did a lot of the post-production on Off the Edge. And he said, "Oh, there's this school teacher, he was a revolutionary school teacher, Sylvia Warner, and so he pulled out this book he happened to have, and so from there I pursued it, and it just so happens Sylvia used to live just along the road from here in Tauranga, so I met her, and the story just grew. It was just such a wonderful story to tell, and in hindsight you just go, oh, so much more you could do. It's always the way with the films. But yeah, so just the idea grew from that. That's really the art department and people like Gary Hansen, he recreated, that era, absolutely brilliantly. And we even found Shell came along, and we found petrol pumps there's a scene with cars. And funnily enough, somebody reviewed the movie afterwards, and they spotted a modern number plate. Isn't it crazy? None of us had seen it while we were making the film and all through the editing. But yeah, that was a challenge to constantly live in that space while making the film. Kind of a crazy kind of doco-drama, just basically people having fun. There was nothing serious about it at all. I showed it to some young people recently and they just loved it, you know, they related to it, you know, it was really crazy that, you know, that's the case. But so it was just one of that era that we were all living in, and it was an opportunity for me to get some funding for a film based on Off the Edge. It was like going back to my past, as it were. And, you know, because I love snow skiing, and so you know, the opportunity was there to raise funding for it. And we thought we had a potentially commercial project on our hands. Unfortunately, the share market crashed soon afterwards and the economy went downhill, and you know, what didn't turn out to be as commercial as we would have liked. Trying to get it into America became very, very difficult. That idea came from Barry Everard, who distributed Off the Edge, and then he came on board as a producer on The Leading Edge. So I went around to meet Billy at his house, and he was having a bit of grief at the time with his extreme kind of humour, upset some people, and walked into his house, and there he had a submachine gun that he was cleaning on his sofa. And he said, well, you know, someone shot me recently with there's bullet holes up the side of his house. So crazy, but he was just a lovely guy to work with. You know, I was a bit nervous to meet him, to be perfectly honest with you. And just couldn't have been easier, you know, was that okay, was that enough humour, and did we do that again? And he was actually, although in the movie we had a stunt pilot, obviously, he actually was a pilot, a helicopter pilot. So yeah, a lot of hidden talent there, and just a real joy and fun to work with. Again, fell back into my sports background. And this time my role was producer, and sort of, well, it was back in the day of offline online editing. It was right on the cusp of when online editing was, everything was online, but it was right at the cusp of that. There's about 20 different cameramen around the country, guys who specialised in mountain biking or specialised in surfing or mountain climbing. And I pulled in all this footage. Firstly we did a pilot, and distributor sold it into 6 territories overseas. We had to produce 13 episodes, and people were saying to me, you'd be lucky to find 13, you know, material for 13 episodes. And we got to the end of 13 and they wanted another 13. And all of a sudden, at one point we were like, you know, about 3 or 4 weeks ahead of ourselves. We were just I was on a treadmill. It was like 6.5 days a week, but all this footage was just pouring in. And, you know, I began to realise this country just goes off every weekend. It's insane, you know, people falling off mountains and flying down on mountain bikes and kayaking and doing all kinds of stuff all over the country. And so yeah, so it was very exciting. So we pulled all that together and edited those into these 26-minute episodes, and just became a machine after a while through the studio in Auckland, and pumping them out, and it was a great experience, it really was, and it just sort of grew and grew and grew. There was almost an international incident. There was that girl snowboarding, and you know, in summertime, you know, skiers typically they all go crazy around summer and big spring, and there was this big ice pond they had to ski across and do a backflip flip over or whatever, and as she went she ripped off her t-shirt and she was topless. And you know, in like 52 episodes, I don't know how many hours that is, you know, there's this 8-second bit completely forgot about, you know, and the phones were ringing from Iran, you know. But anyway, we've corrupted the youth of Iran, but yeah, it's a lot of fun anyway. The whole thing sort of grew in a way, because I thought I was going to be doing 5-minute little clips for one episode on different people. But I suddenly realised I had all this material. I couldn't possibly, so in the end it became an episode for each person. And I sort of grew into the idea of the interviews. I tried to make it as conversational as I could, and firstly I didn't want to have my voice in it, but then they kept on saying Mike this and Mike that and take a look at this, and I couldn't help but become part of the story through my voice in the background. And then I got into a point where I didn't want to do voiceover, but I found there were places where I just had to. So for days and days I sat there and was doing voiceover. I was really hard on myself. That's really terrible, that's really terrible. And I finally got confident. I found a pitch, found a level to work at. And so I finished up doing the voiceover. So it just became a complete project, something that was very unique for me to do, where I was, filming and doing the voiceover and the editing, and I had to have the discipline. It was 26 minutes. It was the same thing, and when you're working like that, you do have to be very hard on yourself to make sure it works. And I think we packed so much into it. We were being so hard on it. My wife kept on saying, "Oh, it's great, leave it." And but anyway, we got there, and it was actually a very, very rewarding experience. And all the people so far were shown it too. And it's been on Sky Television. It's just finished a couple of weeks ago, and we've had fantastic response. So we know it's worked. It's not one of those things that gets reviewed or anything like that. But I think more importantly, if the fishermen like it, it's all that matters.